Welcome to today's session, number 4 on EstimatorXpress. In today's session, we'll be going through the reports and various outputs, including the quote and also the build program. The first section we will be going into is the build program. On the left-hand side, you should see a build program available, and we're going to give that a click. If you attempt to go into other parts of the software after this, such as in the outputs, it will give you a prompt to say that you haven't done your build program yet. The reason it's doing that is because the build program, unless you're using one of the templated old ones, will build up the job for you, put the dates in correct order by, say, its logic, and then put the phases to a length that is suitable for the work estimated. If you've got items estimated in there as subcontract costs or PC sums, you will be able to adjust the lengths of the phase as we go through it. The first thing that will become apparent when you click on Build Program for the first time is you have the Build Program wizard. This can always be brought back up by clicking the Calculate New Build Program button on the top left in the ribbon. You can, of course, if you're happy with this setting each time, click the Don't Show the Preferred Gang Sizes step in future because you're happy with the defaults. This gives a little chance to tell the software how long things will be going based on the kind of gangs that you prefer. It's not going to be overriding much in the actual estimating side of things, but it just gives it a better idea as to the size of the gangs for calculating length. It's using kind of the man hours and such to help with that. I'm going to leave these as default and click Next. If you're not worried about doing a build program and you just want to get through to the quote for main estimate to get a word quote out to a customer quite quickly, just pop through this without really worrying about what's going in. The main thing is it's just going to put the build phases in the correct order for your quote, which is the main thing you'll be wanting from here. Now, the job we started with in session 3 was a lean-to extension. So based on that, it's going typical build program for a typical extension renovation job. We have commencement, we have our ground worker, it's got 2 working days in there. Site setup miscellaneous, user defined duration 1 day, which we can increase because it might be a subcontract cost in there that we've not specifically defined. So I can put that up to 2 days. As we come through, everything else has the number of working days allocated per phase. And if there's certain phases that could be happening concurrently, you can untick that so they go one after another, which is particularly useful if you're having to work around certain COVID regulations. Put one type of gang on site or so forth. As there's not much else in here for me to override because I've got much in the way of subcontract costs, I don't need to say this is going to be the number of days I want these people on site for. I'm just going to click Next. It's going to give me a preview of the job itself, including the links of what phases had to be completed, my critical path, and most importantly in here, I can set the start date of the job. So it's currently got, say, 28th of February. I can move that and say this is actually going to start work on the 14th of March. There you go, bump that along. Click AutoFit to tidy it up, and then I'm going to click Finish once I'm done. That will then pop the build program onto screen for me that I can then have a little gander at. Okay, let's let you go through that wizard's moment. Right, yeah, so hopefully everyone has landed on this page now. So to go through the options in the ribbon for this, as mentioned, we have the Calculate New Build Program on the top left. which will take us through that process again. So if we need to adjust anything, so the number of working days for a phase that might be exclusively set up as a subcontract cost, we can say how long it's going to be ourselves. Revert to unlinked build program, which is the old style build program, which is a template that you can tweak and mess around with, but it will not give you any indication as to the length of phase required. I can, of course, add a build phase manually. Now, this may be that you have a build phase for a third party coming on site that you're not estimating for, you've not quoted for, it doesn't appear anywhere in your estimate, even as a provisional sum. It's just someone there that is turning up, doing some work, and then leaving site, and then you can return and carry on your work. It could be for something you've not quoted for, such as piling, someone coming in to specifically fit some equipment or swimming pool or whatever it may be. In which case, you can then add the build phase to kind of accompany that. If it fits nicely in a pigeonhole of a build phase, you can pick the build phase from that section. It could be the demolition at the very beginning of the job. You're not doing any of it. It could be a third party coming in, specialist demolition company coming in that deals with asbestos and other such things, got to tidy the site up. Or it could be that you have, again, as mentioned, a different type of work coming in midway. I'm going to use External Works 1 for this. If you have an opportunity, you can add phases into the software, as you'll see here by my custom build phase test. It's done under the settings. That would appear in here and you can add that in. But for now, we're just going to go to the External Works and click Select. And what that will do is drop that in at the very beginning, which is wholly inconvenient. What I need to do is move that to a more suitable location. Now, this could be occurring after I've got the structural openings in. So to move this to the correct location, I'm going to make sure that the phase is highlighted, and I'm going to click Move Down. If I use the arrow without the bar, it will move it one phase at a time. If I use the arrow with the bar, it will move it to the very end. I'm going to click that until I am post structural openings. I can then use my mouse to move this around if need be. I can set a, I've got the start date drop there, so I can click and drag that to where I want that to be located. If I hover over the end of a phase, I can make that much shorter. So by hovering over the end of the build phase, see on the right hand face here, you see my mouse has become an I-beam, kind of eye shape. And if I click and hold, I can then move that phase to be longer or shorter. I'll make that up to 3 days. So once it hits that Friday, it takes it straight through to the Monday because that's 1 day. It's going to go straight over the weekend, ready for the next Monday. I can move that forward to post roof tiling, and then I can move my joinery along to the week following by clicking and dragging. Now, because those phases are linked with a critical path, by moving the joinery first fix, I've moved everything. If I want to be advanced with this, I can click, or I can hover over the end where there's the dots, click and create a link by dragging and creating a link there, thus enforcing the fact that this phase finishes and then this phase can begin. I've thus added it into my critical path. So if I was to make the structural openings move along, my external works will also move along. Any links that I have added myself will be present on the right hand side. I'm just going to drag this across. So I can see there that I can, in fact, remove any links that are superfluous. So my structural openings link to the beginning of external works and beginning of joinery, which is the old link. I can remove the one to joinery, but as it is, I'm going to leave it there. I can as well also change the color of the phase. So yeah, whatever tickles your fancy. Let's make that purple. There we go. So that is the basics of setting up the build program. It gives you the minimum amount of time you're going to need for the tasks that you've estimated, so that you can then make a more informed decision about, say, how long the job's going to take. You can increase the phases manually to give yourself more time to allow for that. So what you have costed, say, for 2 weeks worth of solid work, you can give a build phase of 3 weeks to account for any delays during that time. So to reduce that down to 3 days, was it external works? If you hover over the end of a phase, so at the end of the block of color with your mouse, you get an eye. Your cursor will change to an eye shape with an arrow either side. If you left click and hold, you can increase the length or decrease the length of the phase. Okay, you can have a little tinker with that yourself if you like. I'll let you give a few moments for that. Clicks. So while we have the time set out and things are in the correct order, so this order is what's going to appear in our quotes if we quote by build phase. Your weekends might appear different. It's all down to how some of the settings are. If you go to the settings tab on the right hand side here, I've got my showing weekends. I can do show days and such. Also, my color scheme may be playing a part in this. If I go to my settings tab, go to my software theme, and I'm going to click light theme 1 and light theme 2. Okay, still fairly light theme 3. Okay, it's a bit more still pronounced on the other ones. If I got the start date, so background, months, days. So yours isn't grey, got grey on the weekend, or at least a different slightly colour for the weekend. That'd be interesting to see. If you could just take a screenshot of that and send it over to support, that'd be interesting to see what yours looks like. What your settings are under there as well. If you get a snipping tool, mode, rectangular, then just go. Very quick way to take a screenshot, and then you can just hit either save and attach it, or go copy and just paste it into the email. And I can see what yours looks like. That'd be interesting. But yeah, snipping tool, super useful. Snip and sketch in Windows 11 as well. So before I move on out of this section, I am going to go to resource breakdown, which will tell me what is included in the phases. You can use this to maybe do some diagnosis or have a little look through, see what's involved in a phase. So you might have a build phase crop up. I say, okay, what's in commencement? I'm going to click on commencement and see what's actually in here. So I've got costed for in that build phase. I've got skip permit, got some site strip stuff going on here. So my site strip's happening in commencement. So when you click that, it's not showing that. Very peculiar. Should at least change some colors and such. I wonder, Ian, could you very, very quickly for me, if you've got Windows 10, click on the taskbar at the bottom and go Task Manager. So it's like shown like this. If you go to Performance and CPU, you'll see what processor you've got there. Okay. If you've got Windows 11, you'll have to right-click on the Windows Start button to get Task Manager up. But same thing, you might have to click on More Details and then Performance for the CPU. But if you tell me what that is there, okay, it might say if it's Intel 11 something something something, or even, yeah, I think it's the 11th one that mainly, then it might be worthwhile you changing a setting in your software because things aren't updating, or graphically updating, which is the key part there. Okay. Minimize that. Yeah. So CPU. If you can tell me what your CPU is, and I might be able to give you a bit of tech support during the session. 1 second. Okay. So once we are done going through these, say, setting this out as we wish, okay, and we've possibly reviewed some of the materials in the phases that we're looking at, we can print this out or export it as a PDF. You can print a certain specific date range, but if you go straight to export and export as PDF, and bring this up to this screen. You can then say attach that to a document of your choosing. Ice. That is one of the new ones. If that's got Iris graphics, what you could do, just bear with me, everyone. Going at impromptu tech support, settings tab. Yes, you can split the tasks to add lag. You can just you can't really split a task down the middle. It's not that. It's not more of it's not an advanced Gantt chart. It's basically one to set out your build program. That advanced stuff is in our project expert stuff. But yeah, going back to the issue at hand, if we go to settings, we go to EstimatorXpress options, and in the first general tab, you'll find turn off hardware acceleration. Only recommend if there are graphics driver issues, which sometimes means that the page in front of you is not updating with any changes you make. Basically that option exists for some of the newer Intel processors, as they didn't play nice with hardware acceleration in some of these Windows-based programs, or Windows the not .NET, the code base we're currently using. Yeah, anyway, yeah. So we've got an option there to turn it off, and hopefully that should sort things out. And you start up your build program and such will update. It'll become very obvious if it is the case in the output section if it is unticked and your output, say your build your quote from main estimate doesn't update when you make changes. You'll be able to scroll. Okay, so turn off hardware acceleration under General under the EstimatorXpress options and Settings tab. There we go. Random detour, but very important. So we've covered the build program. editing in there. Like I say, you can add a lag between phases just by moving the phase along physically. You won't be able to add a gap in the middle of a phase, but you can split them up. So there's a actually built into this already is a lag after plastering to join your second fix. So built into that is it's already knows it's going to be having to move a couple of days to dry out. Anyway, are there any other questions regarding the build program? I'll give everyone a moment to drop a question in before we go gallivanting off into the output section. Right, yeah, so fueled by a nice big glug of coffee, I am going to click on outputs. So I've clicked on the outputs header instead of going into one of the sub things, sub items, so I can show you the main sections available within the outputs. We have our written documents. So we have quote for main estimate, which will be your bread and butter. You have your building reg notes, which will be useful if, in some cases, more often used by those who design in Plans Express as well, as it allows you to put building reg notes on those drawings, take them from the initial conception all the way through to finishing the job. So very useful. Stage payment calculator, which allows you to set your payment terms and print that out for the customer. Very useful, as you can set a deposit, that's the word I'm looking for, a deposit, and the payment increments, whether based on phase or time. So, and then preview that so you can see if you're ever going to actually be funding the job yourself. It's a very useful tool. Not everyone's going to have that one, so it's not part of the training. There is a recorded webinar from last week where I actually went through that section and some of the reports for job management. That'll be up on YouTube now as well. Yeah, so the stage payments and invoicing, and which is the other one, are bonus pack items. So not everyone has them, so we don't include them in the training, but that's where they would live if you had them. Then we have our graph reports, which are quickly pop into these because we're not going to spend too much time in these themselves. But if I go to cost by build phase, it's a pie chart. And I can go to graph type and I can change it to 3D chart and present that however I like. There we go. Palette. Oh, by the way, if you change the palette in here, it changes the palette on how it appears on when you open it software as well. If green, I think default's possibly blue too. Oh, I clicked on a button. Oh yeah. Cost by build phase. Yeah, so you've got that and the graph chart as well. So you can. These are some of the charts you'll see previewed when you're hovering over the cost breakdowns in the main quote on the main quote template. But for here, it just gives you something you can print off if you're looking to produce some kind of documentation that's a bit fancier. Either the customer is requiring something that's a bit more visual, or you are a developer looking to win some money and some funding to get a project underway. And there's no better way than to give graphs and fancy pictures, because those that dish out the money like things simplified. So there we go. Going to go back to my outputs header. And then after that, we have our data reports. Now, the data reports, as you can see, we've got a fair few in here, pre-templated, are the raw outputs from all the estimating we've done. In here, we have ones that are pre-made, that are basic, like painting costs and plastering costs. If I go to my plastering costs, let that one load up, I can see that pre-filtered by resource type and build phase, I've got plastering. I have 2 plasterers I make, board finish, multi-finish, plasterer down here. So it's mixed and matched all the labor and plant together. So what I'm going to do to make this a little bit more effective is use the field list on the left, on the right-hand side. Now the field list can be turned off by the button up here, which is field list. So if it's missing, you can click it to bring it up. I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger. And some of you may have it showing a bit more like this, or like that. I tend to have it back middling because I like to have a good, easy view of looking through this list here. These areas on the right-hand side, the area filter, the column area, row area, and data area, are basically these areas here. So row area is these items, so build phase, resource description, item used for. Then data area is where it spits out the data based on what's in the row area. I'm going to add in a resource item here. I'm going to go type of resource and pop that in just there after build phase. What this means is now I've grouped together the labor and I've grouped together the materials. So to see that again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it over here. And I'm going to show you that if you hover over the item you want to bring in and say filter by. So I want to see what the types of resource are. I'm going to left click, hold, and then move my mouse. So you should see the little ghost of type of resource moving across. And I can move it to where I want. And when I get to where I want, you'll see that there's some little arrows appear. Probably not so best on the dark background, but it will say, okay, if I let go of the mouse, it will appear here. So if I let go, it'll insert itself into that column. Now it's inserted itself in that column, as said. It will group together the labor, and it will group together the materials, and it will group together any plant and such for those phases. At this point, what I can do is I can go to the ribbon and click Show Row Totals. Sometimes it's automatically ticked for you, other times it may not. Depends what you was last doing in there. But with that, it will show me the row total of each of these. So I can see my labor total for plastering is £1,912.16 previous to any markup. There's no wastage on this. As you can see, the wastage column is 0 for the labor. So if you are having someone doing a subcontract quote for you, you have the ability to quickly go in here, look at what the complete plastering costs for a job are, and then make your decision as to whether they're within a good price range or if they're overcharging. If they're overcharging, are you able to absorb that in any other way, or will you look elsewhere for labor or negotiate them down? If you find that happening frequently, you might want to look at your labor price for your plasterer. The same again for my materials. I can come down here and see my material cost in total. So not too much on the material side of things, £336, and in total £2,246. That's excluding any markup, any VAT and such there. If I want to see that including the markup, as a note, if your field list, I'm looking at the resource, expanded resource section there. If I close that back up again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the main part of it for total cost, including overhead and profit. And I'm going to drag that one into my data area down here, because I want that to appear on the end of this list. I'm just going to hit auto fit, tidy up a little bit, and I can scroll across. So now I can see what each of those items are, once I factor in the markup for my overhead, 15% by default, and my profit by 15% by default. If you don't have a data area, does it look like that? Okay, so what you should have is a little couple of dots below the field list that if you hover over, you get a little bar that you can click and drag up to show those areas. Okay, I'll give you a second to do that. Wunderbar, excellent. There you go. Yeah, so it depends on your screen size. If you've got like a 1080 screen, but it's physically small, like either like a 14-inch screen or even 15, because it's a lot of 15-inch screens now still scale up. Then it might be squashed off the side. I've set my monitor as a 1080 for this, so it's got all the room, and it's set at 100%. I'll show you what. This is what you call scuff monitor setup. Doesn't actually look like that, well, a little bit. That there is actually normally much bigger in resolution, but you wouldn't be able to see anything your end. But yeah, so I kind of make sure that I can have it to a scale that you guys can see, but I'm not squashing anything off the screen. A good example of that is if I change this to 125. That might be closer to what some of you may see. And let that load up again. Like that? Is that what you were getting? I got a sneaky suspicion that may well be the case. Yes. If you right click on your desktop and go to display settings, you can sometimes set the scale to down 100%, which then gives it kind of a native resolution, which should be a little bit more friendly for fitting everything on screen. The 125 it is more just to make everything bigger, much more easier to see. It's good for consumption, but when you get to data stuff, it can squeeze it off. There you go. We have solved that mystery. Lovely. So that's the plastering section there, just as a quick preview. Now, what we can do is, if we want to manage this job a little bit better, we can go down to our materials used. Now, there are several materials reports that we can have a go with. We've got materials used, which gives us a build phase list and then description of every single resource used in each build phase. We have a materials by type, which groups them together by, say, aggregates, blocks, brick, insulation, carcassing timber. We have quotation inquiry, which is like the materials by type, but excludes any pricing data, which is a very good one to export out and send to a merchant when you're looking for a quotation on something. Particularly useful, say, much more easy to use if you have used a rounding tool beforehand to round up all the materials to their nearest whole item. Best done on individual jobs. If you're doing a group of jobs, don't round them, because then you might be ending up ordering way more than you need, because say pack of bricks might go finish off one job and start the next kind of thing. You don't need to kind of always be rounding. It's one of the reasons why it's not native, because of the amount of people doing kind of like multiple estimates or multiple jobs in one place. The the materials one? Materials order schedule and materials task list. Now, materials order schedule. Now I'm going to have a little guide through this one before I go tinkering with other materials ones, just so you can see the value of this particular report. Now, I've got a job starting in March. Now, the materials I'm going to need at the beginning of March, we'll say by the end of March, will have to have been ordered so they arrive on site on time so it can actually. Oh, right, okay, screenshot. One sec. If I. There we go. So I've gone to materials order schedule on the site here. So you haven't missed much. You haven't missed much. Thanks for the feedback on that. If you got a resource that takes 6 weeks to be delivered because of its standard ordering time, let alone whatever backlog there might be currently, this report will say, okay, if you've got a job starting end of March, then by the mid-February you need to have ordered the material for it to turn up on time, and you can actually get on with the job without any delays. The joy of planning. Now, that might not be 100% applicable because of the delay on some materials at the moment, like say bricks, blocks, roof tiles in particular. But the report can still play a valuable role in helping kind of forecast those issues. So I can see that ordered by the 14th of January. So that's already been and gone for my footings. I need to make sure I've ordered my bricks by now to make sure they get on site on time, at the very least the footings. For the main part of masonry shell, I need to at very least order them this week to make sure that they are. I've got some materials order schedule by clicking on the left-hand side. Under the list of data reports here, I just went down to the material order schedule in that list. Probably around about quarter up from the bottom. Well, there we go. So with this one, I know that date's already gone, but I say, right, oh crap, I need to get onto the phone and order the materials to make sure they can get the delivery done on time. I know that I've still got say I can order this week for my pitch polymers to make sure they've got them in stock and I've got them secured. I can order my ready mix well in advance now. I can so it just gives me that kind of prior warning based on their kind of average delays in ordering to make sure I'm ordering ahead of time. And you can look at this report and look at things beforehand and go, right, okay, I need to get all this ordered in so and so. You can group this up a little bit. So you're not going to order, say, like half a pack of bricks for one phase and then another half a pack for another phase later down the line. You just might have a whole pack of bricks ordered in one go. So you could group them together. I'm going to take the build phase out, put it over, and then I can go, okay, right, I've got my order by date engineering brick, then I've got facing brick for that week being ordered, and that facing brick for that week being ordered. I can mess around with the dates and orders of this. So I put ordered by date by the other side of things. I can go, okay, I got order by date in as my main ordering here. So earliest date by latest date. Filter that one. I can then say, okay, well, I've got groups of items. Which one am I going to order first? So I can go to order by date. What materials do I need to order in January? And get them all in one go. I'll clear that filter actually. Restore that report. If you ever get to a situation where you go, okay, right, I've got the information I need. How do I get back to where I was? You can hit restore report. Put build phase first, see what happens. Oh, that's that alphabetical order, so that won't be any good. I'll put that back up there. I'll put that up there. Resource description is just going to be material. Go resource type. And if I put in type, let's see where that lands me. Oh, did I go in? Oh, put it in the data area by accident. There we go. If I go resource type aggregates, bricks, and then I'm going to take out item used for. So this way then I can start looking at the materials as a whole. There we go. So I've got facing bricks, and I can see the totals of that, and I can see the earliest date for the bricks being ordered. Then I can just go, okay, right, I'll order the 54 bricks and the 1,548 bricks. So I can go ahead and now just order, what's the, including wastage. I could order, 1,675 bricks and be happy with it. Okay, and know that I've got all the bricks coming for the job. So as long as I can keep them somewhere on site, keep them safe, I've got either somewhere to put them, maybe a driveway. I've got to put the blocks on there as well, and whatever else gets delivered. Or you're keeping them in your own lockup, or you've just ordered them in bulk, and then you can use the dates on the start of the build phase to say they need to be delivered by here, and order and organize with your merchant. Your bulk purchase of the material, but then it's incremental delivery. So you're gaining that information out of this. You can, and if you want to start from scratch with that, I can go to, say, materials used as an example of this. Okay, I'm going to go to materials used, which is like third from bottom of the reports. Actually, no, even better. I'm going to go to a quotation inquiry. Quotation inquiry, because a quotation inquiry does not include any pricing information, which is ideal for sending to merchants, because then they know they're not what pricing you'll get from it, and if they charge cheaper, they charge you what you've quoted for. So I've got it's already broken down by resource type, resource description. So all I need to do is find order by date in the field list and pop that in there. I could use date required and drag that in, which might break it down a little bit further. I put date required afterwards. Then I can see resource type first. There we go. Order by date second. Resource description. So looking at my bricks, I've got my whole quantity of bricks there. I can see that they need to be delivered on site for the 22nd. Those bricks need to be delivered on site for the 18th. I can have them all delivered up by the 18th. Because that my date required is the start of my phase. So it's a section. So basically, the reports in the software is a very detailed way of drilling down information. The key thing is how you order the information. I'm going to go to a cost report, okay, just so we've got so I can take you through step by step on going through something bit by bit. Generally, because cost reports have nothing in them, and I can start from scratch. Give that a second. Okay, so cost report is just build phase, and it's in alphabetical order. It makes very little difference of like how things are presented. It's just alphabetical order, and then what each phase costs in total. Okay, so if you haven't done any of the moving of the field lists around yet, this would be the best point to start it. So if you're in the cost report, it's near the top, third of the way down in the list. Okay, grab the cost report. Okay, so now we've got the cost report. We saw it's, as I said, it's listed by build phase. We can put that in the correct order by, in our field list, dragging over date required. It's one of the main filters there. So date required. So if you follow along, please click that one and drag it across so the arrows indicating its insertion point is just to the left of where it says build phase. We let go there, and it will put everything in order. Now, at the moment, it's added a date order there, then put everything commencement, site setup, foundations, footings. It's put it all in order. You'll also see it's grouped items that are estimated together because the build phases are happening at the same time. You'll also see that it's also giving me totals for those dates. If I don't need to see totals for each of those dates, I can come to the ribbon and untick show row totals. It'll still give me my grand total at the bottom, as well as the cost for each line. If I don't need to see the grand total, I can come to the pivot grid options here and go untick grand totals. Not sure you want to do that. You've got show column grand totals, which has nothing in this one to affect, and also show column totals, which has also nothing to affect in this one. There are two other tick boxes which will be very useful in here because there's going to be information coming through from calculators that you may have said no to certain items in, and they will come through with a value or quantity of 0. They're costed as 0 because there's nothing to it, or they're quantity of 0 because there's nothing estimated of it, but they still appear in your reports. They come up as let's say 0 cost quantities. I can probably bring something in for that by dragging in. Let's go to resource. Actually, item use tool. Yeah, item reuse tool will give us the biggest list. I'm going to drag that one in after build phase. Okay, so I'll let you drag that one in and then hit auto fit. So when you hit auto fit, depending on your machine, you might want to give it a minute. Okay, now by doing the item used for, hopefully it's giving me something in here at the price of 0. If not, I've got everything coming through. It's working better. I've got everything priced. Okay, so what I'll do it anyway. The two tick boxes up here are hide items with a quantity of 0 and hide items with a 0 cost. It just tidies up the reports. Mine doesn't actually need tidying up, so it's frustrating because everything's done. But my order of filtering doesn't need it. But that would then tidy up the report, which makes it much tidier when you print it out, because whoever's viewing it will not see superfluous lines in there or items that have 0 cost or 0 value to them, which will then only be confusing. So those two I've pretty much got turned on exclusively anyway, all the time. So bar the material ones I've looked at. Okay, one final one I'm going to look at materials. I'll go back to the quotation inquiry. Okay, and I'm going to restore this report back to its default because there's one other thing I want to show you in here as well. Apologies if we're bouncing between some reports. Unfortunately, there's just quite a few in here, and normally when it comes to reports, everyone's got different needs. Some people use the basic cost reports. Some people hardly ever use them. Some people just use the things like materials used. The one that is mainly golden here that most people build off of is the price to customer quote, which is going to be the last report I look at. It's the one that has every single item in the report, and it has the profit and markup and VAT, like I say, all included in its cost. So if there's one report to print out to show someone or edit to then give to someone, that's the one. But the quotation inquiry, the reason I returned back to this one and brought it back to its default state is because I want to return to something that we did in lesson 1 with the price book, and that is filtering. Everything in the reports, while we can drag those fields into all day and night, putting things in different orders to get the information coming through at the end with the values we're looking for, or looking for using things like a estimating calculator name to see where a particular item is showing up and which calculator I need to look in to find it if I need to turn it off, random bits of decorating materials, or I'm wondering where this cork's coming from. Right, the cork's in the window calculator. We can find that. But using those filters, that's straightforward, dropping them in. But the one that is most useful, for, say, when producing some documents for people, is the little pins again, my little friendly pins. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hover over the resource type column, the default one. I'm going to hover over the pin, and I'm going to click on that one and bring up my filter box, very much like the filter box again for type that's in the price book. And again, I can click on a single line to just look at a particular, a certain line of resources in there. But because I'm not changing anything, I'm trying to gain information that I can export and send to someone. Let's say I've got a merchant like does aggregates and blocks and such, concrete products. Got some near me, rings and other such. Do so. You go in there, you can get you can get aggregates, you can get concrete blocks, you can get sand, cement, concrete breast lintels and stuff like that. You're asking for a bit of timber and they'll look at you funny. So if we want to get a quote from them for everything they can provide for us, I can go to this filter and go aggregate, blocks, bricks, concrete and concrete products. They might, I think they do, they could do damp proofing, they could do the DPC as well. They might go up to DPC. I've seen that in there. They might do some lintels. And they might even do some metal work if that's applicable as well. So that'd be more things like cavity clips and such. Once we've got all the items we want to have a little look at, close, click off the filter. So I'm left with my filtered resources. Once I've got my filtered resources, I can then export that report out to something useful that I can then attach to an email or copy and paste from. Up to recently, I've been recommended the CSV because it's a raw data file, and they probably are more than happy to be able to get a CSV because it's very easy to use. But there are also the presentation style and calculation style Excel calculators you can put out to. I'll give you a presentation style one first, purely because there are some use case scenarios where you might want to be able to look at all the items in here in a very particular way. I'm not the biggest fan of this one, but there are cases where, because it's more about being able to close up the data and expand that open. Closing out the data and hiding the bits you don't need to look at. You might want to look at blocks or you might want to look at aggregates. So you just look at the aggregates and see the order quantity of the aggregates. Okay, so that's what the presentation style one does. You can just look at blocks in there. We go, okay, I just want to look at concrete. Allows you to expand things out. as required. I'm going to close that one down. Don't save. The other one is a calculation style. Overwrite that one. The calculation style doesn't have any of the filters. It just literally goes aggregate, 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 concrete, sand, cement, or sand, sand bulk bag, sub base, installation block standard, dense concrete block, trench block. Very straightforward, very simple, very easy to use. And once you've got your, if you use pre-rounded figures in it, everything's going to be nice and rounded in here beforehand. Otherwise, you can adjust this to get your figures to land somewhere where it's more applicable. So resource quantity, if you're not using rounding, you can go, okay, I'm just going to change that to 30. That I'm going to put as just 3. That one there, I'm going to put as 2. I could put that as 6 or 6.5. I might do 27. I could put 8.5 meters square. You'd be able to order 8.5 meters square. They'll do that. Trench blocks. Because I can get 2.8 meters square. So you can go through and round this yourself. It's some little bits, but I recommend using the rounding tool within the software. And it's not been covered in this training so much. I think we might have touched on it at some point and mention, but it will do this bit for you. But once you've done that, you can again also delete the pre-columns. There we go. Delete them. Delete that resource wastage one as well. And you've got then a table that you can attach. Get rid of the grand total one as well. I don't really need grand totals on that. Absolutely pointless. You can attach that to an email or save it as a file again and send that to your merchant, and then have a shopping list of items that you need. If you've done the report, so you've put in the required by date as well, there you can know when they've got to deliver it. It's very useful. 1 second. So, with that there, I'm going to say exporting the report out to Word. There's any Excel. Are any questions on that one? Yeah. So same logic applies when you're looking at labor used. It'll give you just your labor, say, either grouped together by their types or by their order dates. Like say, labor order schedule will give you the labor as you need to contact them to make sure they arrive on time, to make a bit of lead time for whatever jobs they're on. Again, you don't have to follow it like gospel, but it gives you an indication of who you need to contact first, depending on, or give you a bit of a heads up as to when you want to be contacting them to make sure then you're not calling the day before. There we go. Labour used. I can see who's been in commencement. I can see who's doing my footings. I got bricklayers and ground workers on. Internal preparation. I've got decorator there for doing any stripping. General labour and a joiner plus mate for any stripping out we've got scheduled to it. So nice and straightforward. Now with the reports, I do encourage people to just have a little look around and poke around, because you can mess around in here and all you need to do is hit restore report. And everyone's flavours on this one is very different. The final report I'm going to go into is the price to customer quote. As mentioned, this is the one that has all of the items included. Okay, give it a second to load because it's quite a big one. It's thinking, yep. It's got a lot of load. There we go. So yeah, depending on your machine, if you've got a really big job, you might want to give it a minute to load because there's a lot of data because it's having to kind of gather together and format to present to you. But this one is pre-configured with the date required, so it's all in order. The build phases, the item used for, the resource description, and what they're purchased in. It doesn't break that down by labor types or what if it's labor, plant, and sundry. Again, you can add that in. But this one just focuses on resource quantity, including wastages and the total costs of each section or each item. So this one can be just spat out as a report and shown to anyone because you're not going to be showing your X markup prices on this one. Again, using resource and type of resource. So between build phase and item used for will give us our best bit of information there to group materials per phase and the labor materials and such, so we can see where everything is. I can even see there that I've got sundry beans that which I added in lesson 3. And I go, where did I put beans? Why have I got beans showing in my reports? And that's that, as mentioned earlier on, this is when you can use something like the estimating calculator. Look in the right section. There we go. Estimating calculator name. If I just bring that one in after the incriminating name, I wonder where that's going. Oh, that's in lean-to roof. Right, okay. If I need to go find why I've got beans in there, where that resource is from, I can just go look in the lean-to roof calculator and go eliminate it. Remove the beans. Then once I've kind of information, I can just remove that filter back out again. Okay, so are there any questions about the reports? Anything anyone wants to know or go into before I move on to the quoting section? Give everyone a moment to think of a question, or just have a last poke around in this bit before we move on. Okay, since everyone seems happy with that one, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the written quote. So I'm going to scroll up on the left-hand side here, just so I can see the outputs list, because at the top of the outputs list is my written documents. Give that a click. And it will show me the types of written documents I've got. So at the very least, all of you will have the top 2, which is quote for main estimate and building reg notes most likely. Not everyone, as mentioned, will have stage payments or invoicing as their bonus packs. When you are navigating around, you can either come to the written documents here and click on quote for main estimate, or you can use the button on the side to click onto it. Or you can even use the expand options there to continue expanding to go directly into a very specific section of the document. In this case, I'm just going to click on the quote for main estimate header. So I go into it and I see the whole document in one go as a whole. And it's at this point now that I've crossed my fingers and hope that I've reset my settings so I've got no silly pictures loaded up as training. Right, now we are in our quote for main estimate. What we will see on the right-hand side is a settings box. The settings box is contextual, meaning it will show whatever is pertinent to whatever is currently being displayed here. At the moment, it's looking at the cover page, so it's giving me the settings for the cover page, of which it's saying single story extension as the job's named, but also saying client details not provided. I can't type in here, I can't edit this. This is coming from this side over here. Word of warning, don't change what's in there. Don't override that client name with your client name. Because what will happen is that then that client name will appear in your next quote. What you have there is basically a little bit of shorthand code that says, okay, that's the client name. Look for the client name of the job. We haven't added a client name, so it's got no client provided. If you do delete that, no need to panic. You can pick it out from here and it will add in what you want, be it a client address, a date, a name on there, the site name, whatever bit of information you may want popping up on the cover page. On this section as well, you can also edit the job details for the job, so job name. The final section of the cover page is include logo, in which if we give that a tick, it will allow us to browse for a new logo. What I'm going to do is choose the Microsoft acquisition meme. I'm going to apply those changes. And it's appeared at the top there. To move that to where I would like that to go, I'm going to use the size to increase its size so it's bigger. I might make that 70 millimeters across. And on the vertical alignment, I want it to the top of the page, but I'm going to pad it from the top another 60 millimeters from the top. I'm going to apply those changes. And now that's come down too low. It's covering my text. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to pad that 45. Apply those changes. And that's there now. So we have the no one expects the Microsoft acquisition. Just a little joke from the last couple of days as Microsoft decided to buy Blizzard Activision at the complete surprise of absolutely everyone for just a small sum of $68.7 billion. Just pocket change from Microsoft. 68.7 or something on those lines of, yeah, billion. How they kept that hidden, we don't know. But yes, that was announced a couple of days ago, so the memes are going around. But it gives them a perfect opportunity to pop in a picture that could very well be your company logo, and you can move that around using these. Once you have done that and you want to save this, you can save your logo settings to the library by clicking Save Logo Settings to the library. That way then, next time you do a quote, your logo will appear as it was here in the section of the page you want it. One key thing with that, you'll see that it's saying it's going users so-and-so desktop msa.png where it's looking for the image. If you move that logo from your desktop, it won't show a logo. So the main tip I give everyone for this one is before importing your logo into the software, put your logo where it's most safe. Like if you've got like a logos folder in My Pictures or something like that where you keep all your company logos, pop it in there, then point the software at that logo in there. That way then it's not going to go anywhere and it continues to appear in your quotes as it should, as expected. As we go through, I can scroll through to the letter. And my contextual settings on the right hand side have changed to letter. This has the same input items here for client name and address, site address and such, which you do not want to be overwriting, but you can tweak the text in here for how it appears. Pardon me, that caught me by surprise, my apologies. So we can change the text as it comes through to this section here. So there you go, test. So you can customize the text on the letter to suit the job as it is. If you do that, I would suggest that you don't save that settings because that will again appear on the next job. You can, if you've got the opportunity, or you feel that you're doing a couple of the same jobs each time, you can copy the letter give it a new name, and make those changes and save it for next time. I've got my copy example. There we go. I can save that. I've saved that. If I want, I can import the default one back in again. So you can add to the library of like the default letterheads that you want to be using. You can expand what we have within the software. To bring in a letterhead, just click include letterhead, and you can browse for a image file that is basically the letterhead itself as produced. You can do this by producing the letterhead as it laid out as it would in Word, save as PDF, and you can save that as an image. Or if you just want to just create your letterhead in Word and save it as a PDF, you can go import PDF, and you can then bring that PDF into the software. It'll create the image file for the letterhead, and you can then use that. I'm not going to bring it here because I've got no appropriate PDFs I can bring in and just show off with another qualification learned recently. But the main thing is you can bring your letterhead in. As if the point you get to do this yourself, if you're unsure, this is one of those things that you're more than welcome to call in and we can help you with that one. One thing to note here as well, if it's a very simple letterhead, you can repeat the letterhead on other pages, such as like say your acceptance and optional items or your terms pages, or your summary page. If you want, if it's a very simple letterhead and start writing everything, you can also set it so that when the it's also default set that when your letterhead's appearing, it will hide the footer and the header so they don't double up. Just as a note there. But it might be that when the letterhead's appearing, you still want your footer displayed because the letterhead's only the top half of the page. As I scroll down, I've got my summary, which basically shows build phase total. I got the option to show it after the breakdown instead of before. I can do a labor and material summaries. So I can have that showing there. I'm not going to have that by default. I'm just going to apply changes and go back to my normal one. As I can continue scrolling, I then get down to commencement. I'm now looking at my build phases. So if I was looking at this now, I'm down to this on the left-hand side, breakdown. This is currently breaking it down by build phase, and based on the order that we did in the build program earlier. At the moment, I've got this showing with a very low amount of information, and my contextual settings on the right-hand side isn't giving me the option to say how much information I'm showing. It's actually got all resources that are currently hidden. I can change this by using the tabs in the settings. So I can click on build phases and I can see the information that changes the build phases globally. It'll change all of them. I can, in particular, decide to take off images globally or leave them on. I can hide phases, though if you do hide one or more phases, it will be added on the end of the build phases as additional items. So because the cost has to come through. Often, I find that consolidate locations is a very, very good button to click if you are not, if you haven't focused on using the locations within an estimate. It's a question we had on Tuesday. If you're not setting the locations on items, you can consolidate locations and it just groups things together without worrying about where they are in the build. And then mainly here we have specify resources display mode. I can show key resources and I can apply that. If I go to show all resources, apply that, I can start showing more detail on the resources coming through. I can even apply quantity. I'm going to show the estimate rate for the unit and apply that on there. Now I chose estimate rate because when it comes to laying bricks, let's say that, like lay bricks above DPC less openings, it says they've got 25.8 meters square of laying bricks. The other option will give me how many hours has been estimated, which you don't want because very likely you're going to get a customer stood there with a stopwatch. So I prefer, if we ever show this level of information, like mainly for a consultation meeting with a customer to say, look, this is what we've estimated, we've gone through everything, then the quantity and estimate unit is the one I tend to go down to. And the simple rounding basically goes to a single decimal point. You can go to 2 decimal points if you want. You can show subtotals on materials and subtotals on labor, but they're currently set to always hide because it'll just give you the subtotal for that build phase. There are ways to change certain settings within here. So any material below the price of £20 will be hidden automatically. You can even hide labor below and plant below certain values. So any plant below £50 will be hidden. So that's going to be things like your wheelbarrows and tools, and so maybe the breaker, if you like for a day and it's less than that, it's not going to come through onto the quote. You can hide them. One other thing, say, because we are looking at this by build phase, I'm going to go to the main settings tab. So the main settings tab is where I can change this to go from build phase and maybe estimate this by estimating calculator, which there are some use for, or more importantly, group together by location. So if you have made use of the location tags on every worksheet, you can say that you estimate by location, which is particularly useful for renovations. Because if you do a room, the room's name is its location. So everything applied to that room is in that location. So you can quote for location, say everything in bedroom 2, all the plumbing, electrics, replastering, new floor, that's all grouped together. Bear with me one moment. In the main settings here as well, I would recommend not going into this one with data filter, but you can turn off costing for materials and such and do a labor only quote and such. Okay, but if you do that, it won't just hide the resource, it will remove them completely from the price. And also contents, what you want to show. So we've currently got our cover letter showing. We've got a cover page showing. We've got our assumptions and omissions page showing. We've got our summary currently showing. If you don't want to use a summary in the quote, untick the summary. If you don't want to have a breakdown, you just want to have a summary but no breakdown, untick the breakdown. You can untick the acceptance, though the acceptance is very useful to have, but a lot of times some people untick terms because the terms by default just says copy and paste your terms in here. If you don't copy and paste anything in there, then it looks a bit silly. So if you untick terms, then you're not worried about producing something that says terms on a whole page and says copy and paste them in, unless you have copy and pasted them in. If you do have terms, I'll show you that in a second. We can set the VAT on the job in the main settings here. All right. Default set as percentage with 20%. You can set that as a fixed amount of VAT on the job. Or you can put that as input only, which is not VAT registered. So what that will do, input only, is increase the charge for the materials, and basically anything that is VAT reliant, anything that you can claim VAT back on or get charged VAT for that's not been costed for with VAT as an exact value, it will add an extra 20% to that before it hits the quote. So even if you don't charge VAT, you're not VAT registered, the software is covering the cost of the material increase, so that when you do pay the material, including the VAT price, you are not losing out on that VAT price from your own budget. It's covered by the quote. Okay. We'll go back to percentage. We got 20% currently by default, but again, depending on the job, you can change that. Font styles, I'm not going to go into. I'm going to continue scrolling down on the main quote itself. I can even just scroll down further here. If you want a shortcut, what you can do is you can just click on the item on the side and it will take you straight through to the page you want to look at. So I've currently got my acceptance of estimate with my VAT at 20%, signed client not provided, because I've not included a client. But we have single story extension estimated dated 20th of January 2022. When that's produced, usually it will produce two of those pages. So if it's printed, you can both keep a copy. Now finally, again, the terms and conditions, which again, as I said earlier on, copy and paste your terms and conditions using Control-V. Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. So if you do have set of terms, you can paste them in there, and then you can just save it to library, and it'll appear on every job subsequently. Not everyone has terms and conditions, as mentioned. If you don't have terms, you can go to the main settings, untick terms, apply that, and our terms and conditions are gone from the quote. They are no longer there. We don't have to worry about them anymore. Again, it's particularly useful to have terms because it's one of those things that helps protect you. Couple of key tips when it comes to the main estimate as well is say something on your letter. One edit that you may want to have in at the moment is that you've got estimate value for a period of 28 days from date of issue. You may want to shorten that down to 20 days or so, whatever you feel is appropriate, depending on what your build is majority consisting of, and if it's going to be, I don't know, particularly volatile. Timbers come down a little bit, but steels are still going up. Concrete products, I know it's just things like compressed lintels are still going up as well. So depending on what your build is, you can decrease the time the estimate is valid for. Quick check on this. Right, and that is the end of module 4. So going through those items. Any questions? I'm happy to revisit some sections there. Say the written document section is fairly straightforward as you go into it. The report section is one that is very bespoke and individual to each person on how they kind of want the information to be presented. Some people want it down by location, some people don't want it down by build phase, some people want it down by date. It's a very, not say personal thing, but individual thing, depending on how you run your business or you've been trained to kind of look for information, or even what your accountant wants. Okay, so yeah, I'll have the floor open for a few minutes. If you've got any questions, please fling them over to me now. Not got any questions in. Hopefully, I've not sent everyone to sleep. That's the biggest worry. I've not, not bored everyone to tears, and you've all collapsed at your desks. There's some items on the main estimate template. Oh, is that some items in this section here, the main estimate? Yeah. Also, not every calculator is linked across. If they are either old or out of date, they may not have been updated and added into the main template yet. Oh, if you add something in the main template, so if you add something in the main estimate, it will not carry up to the template. It's very top down. The information literally flows from the top of this list down. Hence why it goes from, say, from the quote template down to the outputs, which then affect to the build program, which then affects the outputs. So template feeds estimate, because the template is effectively a front end for the main estimate. It's a human interaction interface to make things easier for people, other than diving straight into the estimating calculator as a list like this, which isn't the most natural way of going about. Well, one we find is it's one that's been like has been the software 20 years, and we've improved upon since. It's not the one that people interact with as easy as the templates, hence why we've done templates. But yeah, the template feeds into the estimate, not vice versa. The information flows downhill with the template at the top, main estimate in the middle, outputs at the end. Okay. So, any more questions? So, as a reminder, as mentioned in every lesson, main thing try to impart is not exactly always how to do every single thing, but that all those options are there and available to do those things. And you're always welcome then to contact support with any further questions. So I don't have any training booked in tomorrow, and I should be available from 10 o'clock onwards if you want to speak to me to clarify anything that we've gone through in the lessons. And if you are looking forward to having the little certificate from attending all four, my colleagues in the admin team will be going for the attendees to make sure that everyone that's attended all four will be getting, notification of that, the certification of attending all four sessions. Well, that's a good question. Incoming services. I'll go to the main quote template for this one, so you can see the template. There's a calculator for it. Let's go there. Okay. So with this, I'm going to go down to, I think it should be under prelims and sundries. Service charges. That be the one you want for incoming services, electricity, water, and telephone. Which is basically dropping the cost of what they've quoted you for this one. If you can save money by digging your own trenches for the services, then go straight ahead. You can use a lot of time repurposed drainage calculators for that one. Bit of drain run, no pipe. Just remove the pipe and leave you with the pea gravel and protection. For any services coming in, or swap the pipe for something else, with another channel for something to be fed through. I should imagine the telecom cable supply costs is one interest at the moment, because everything's fibre being installed at the moment. So that's a bunch of because speaking to an engineer recently, and he was under the impression that the copper network is going to be basically redundant off in the next 6 years. He also had a very strong opinion of scaffolds, and anyone that works on a scaffold that has been erected around a telecom cable, because everything's fibre now. It's not as forgiving as a copper cable for telephone lines going in, because the internet lines also run that way, and they do not appreciate being nailed to a scaffold board. Yeah, if you want to get the cost of putting, say, ducting it, like say to run services through that, then use drain runs, and then just change the drain pipe to either something appropriate for it, renamed like a material, say copy the pipe, call it ducting, service ducting, or you just remove it altogether and just leave it as an open trench until the services are laid, and then you just finish off using the calculator, which is the pea gravel protection, concrete over the top if required for protection, and other bits and bobs, and backfill. That's how I would go about it. If you're not worried about the volume of material coming out because it's going straight back in for something, then you could just use the drainage plant. With a note on that as well, because if you've got services going in, at any point you need to add in a lintel, possibly in your footings for services going underneath or drainage. You may remember that I opened up the estimating calculator for things like the roof and walls and such. What you can do is you can go to the sundry resources. So if you've got ever services coming up running underneath the building that you might need to avoid and such, you can go to the sundry resources and go add material and add in a concrete pressed lintel or something like that. If I go type all still lintels, move that filter. Let's do practice the filter. Spelling is going to be a useful one as well. There we go. Pre-stressed, not compressed. Mine was taking me up sideways to something ever so slightly different. So yeah, you can just add in, like going in there, adding like a 900 wide or something, or 700 just for service. Item used for. Two of them. And put them in a. There we go. So you can just add stuff like that in. So if you've got services running underneath as well, under outbuildings, you can help with that. But yeah, the drain runs. I go to drainage, drainage and services. It just does say services there. There was actually a service. I been a complete numpty. There was did actually modify the drain one, so there was actually services ducting run. My apologies, Ian. It was already there. It just looks identical to the drain run one. Hence, my brain had not made that connection immediately. But voila, a services run. Hey presto, there we go. That was much easier. Sorry about that. I think the calculator kind of merged itself in my brain because it literally has some of the same pictures and is literally the same thing of digging a run. And because it requires the plant, yeah, then say you do want to use plant. It doesn't include plant automatically because that service run may have been dug out as part of something else. You might have just dug it along outside, surely by accident when you're doing another part of the job. Because a service and also service conduit to be defined. So you can specify that in there. I'm not going to do that right now. When I'm doing this, add estimating calculator. Then I just go use drainage plant cost for the excavator for removing that. There you go. That's simplified that one, didn't it? And 2 days for excavator, shovel, pad cutter, living collection of the plant for finish. There we go. And sign for it as well. Okie dokie. So any other questions there? So now I've got my brain in gear for services installation. So we've got flat costs of the gas and electric boards, or say telecoms company installing, and then we've also do our own runs for services installation, which is like drain runs, and it's confusing me because I'm easily confused. And then I'll say drainage plant just to allow for digging out of that trench. So on top of that one, any other questions? Because judging by my performance in the last 5 minutes, I am in need of a coffee. I am slowing down. I am withering away on the vine. Nope, no more questions. You're leaving me hanging. But well, this is actually the last one. This is session 4 of 4. Any other webinars after this will be bonus ones of Pacific. Oh, my brother does that. Specific things. I believe the next specific webinar is on the smart scheduler. So that's going to be me for an hour or so, pretending I know all about material scheduling as an expert. Mainly based on the fact that I'm going to be focusing on the elements I do know about. But if there's questions anyone's got for that one, you want to tend to that one, please come along. I will do my best to answer every question I can. And if there's any questions I can't answer from that one, because it is on a Friday afternoon, then I'll be able to get over to anyone as well. And if there's any questions, if there's any questions I can't answer, we have someone in the company that can. I'm actually looking forward to the Smart Scheduler webinar, generally because it's one of those tools that you don't always realize. It's one of those nice to haves that you don't realize you want it until you start using it, and you go, no, this is bloody useful. This is, part of the language. But yeah, it's something that's like very recent addition to the software. So yeah, we're going to be putting a little bit of time into sharing its uses with the world. So yeah, thank you for attending. I'm going to end the webinar here now. So the training session. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. If I do not speak to you before then, say we've still got Friday to go, but still, it feels like a Friday. Done a lot of talking this week, lots of talking. But thank you again for attending, and I look forward to speaking to you on support. Ta for now, bye.